IPMNation.com.
Live from the Outpost Studios in Columbus, Ohio, you're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Brought to you by IPMNation.com. Get ready for the gong heard round the world.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All-Natural Being. Warning, All-Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Thank you. Welcome. Oh, let me get over here. This will work out a little better. And thank you for stopping by the 325th episode. I can't believe it myself, but thank you for stopping by the 325th episode of the number one rated show on IPMNation.com. You're in to All Natural Being, the gong heard round the world, broadcast as it happens here on IPMNation.com, and now multicast live on Facebook, YouTube, over at the allnaturalbeing.com page, and also the new Brian Brawdy app. However you come to hang with us, we're always pumped to have you, and always live from the now transitional radio uplink, or soon to be at least, Columbus, Ohio, with rebroadcasts on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, all the regular suspects. Greetings wherever you are, here in the Garden of the Mortals. And what a gig it is, winning or whining. It's up to you and me. Life, it's your labyrinth, your shot at running the table, diving the rabbit hole as you see fit. The hell with your critics. What do they know? What? They're more of an expert on your unique? They're more of an expert on your wild at the core than you are? Time to own your primal scream. Be done placing it in the junk drawer. Front and center, on your lips, where it belongs. That's why we're always putting your heart's highest priority top of the list. Reinstalling and reinstating the true wit and wisdom and wallop, I love that, just a wallop of your inner whisper. Rebooting your robust, finding your ferocious, all in time to out-brutal the brutal. That can be the cut and shuffle that fate deals you on a daily basis, and to bring your own bold once and for all. But before we hit it this evening, hello to my friends here in the United States, in Canada, Mexico, the UK, those in Ecuador, China, the Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, France, Nigeria, Turkey, Japan, Singapore, Thailand, Belgium, Sweden, Israel, South Africa, Egypt, Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands, Colombia, Greece, Ireland, Peru, Poland. To those joining us from all over the globe, it really is great having you with us. And I truly am fired up to be driving your bandwagon, to be your virtual hitchhiker if you're on the go this evening, but either way, to be your biggest fan, to always be avidly you. But before we jump into tonight's show, here's the question of the hour. Let me ask you, why would you let anyone hijack your cognition? Why would you let anyone play you like a sock puppet? Because the days of needlessly torturing yourself by being someone else's tool, they're over once you decide it's time right now to take your life into your own hands. So what are we waiting for? Here's your opportunity to mortal up. So what do you say? Let's go kick in some doors. I've been thinking about that a good bit lately. When we talk about all of this, I was talking with my friend Patricia today, and she said that all the dissonance is deafening. And she had a great point. All the dissonance, everything going on, all the turmoil in the world, it's definitely distracting, but it's also deafening when it comes to hearing your inner whisper and the wallop. I love that. The wallop of your inner whisper. Look at all the mashugana going on in the world today. And perhaps no mashugana greater than what we allow to be our own sense of binge thinking, of what we allow to get in and interrupt the wallop, the wit, the wisdom of that inner whisper. Today I put up over on Facebook, and it's going to be the content of tonight's show. Why would you ever let your head veto? Your heart's vital, right? Your heart says, hey, this is vital to my existence. Why would we let our own heads, or anyone else's heads for that matter, why would we let that be vetoed? Why? Because we want to fit in? Want to be liked by everyone in the crowd? We talked about last night how unique you truly are. If you're here, how unique you truly are, how truly astronomical in terms of the odds that any one human being, as they're currently constructed, as they're currently packaged with their first name and their last name, their set of idiosyncrasies and their passions and their brilliance and their potential just this side of infinity, truly, truly, truly astronomical, a billion times over, that any one individual is here. So what are you and I going to do about it? Let other people worry. Let other people pontificate. Let other people cry about it. But for you and I, is there really anyone more of an expert on our own unique, on our own primal scream, on our own inner whisper? Who could be more of an authority figure than you yourself? Who could be more of an authority figure than your own heart? Which is why the question that I asked earlier today, and I want to ask again this evening, why let your head veto anything that pertains to your heart's vital? Well, we're worried what people will say, what people will think. Maybe it won't yield us everything that we want. Who knows the list of reasons? You do. And I suspect at times we all do, right? We have that sense of what it is that compels us to want to go easy, want to go slow, right? And I talked earlier in the post, about this, just little steps that we can take. We call them 20-minute victories. And I also just, little regains of the minutia in our life, right? We're not going to go all hog wild, right? When we talked about, and one of the things we want to talk about tonight was what a great, in terms of your overall health for your heart and your head, hedonism, it's the way to go. Now, it gets a bad rap, right? You say hedonism, and everyone thinks of the Roman emperors, Nero, right? At least, playing the fiddle while Rome burns. You get the idea. But hedonism is getting a bad rap because what you and I are talking about, what we're suggesting, is that for one 20-minute victory, 1/72 of your day, why not focus on making yourself happy? Why not focus on being a little narcissistic? Why not, as we say all the time, if the airplane's going to, the airplane's getting ready to go down or there's a depressurization in the cabin, what do they say? Put your own mask on first. I got to get one of those oxygen masks. That would be a great, right? If it just fell from the ceiling. You go, put your oxygen mask on first and then put the oxygen mask on of people around you. Well, it's the same thing. If you work on your inner hedonism, you work on your inner narcissism, and if we agree we're going to do it for 1/72 of our day, 1 20-minute victory, don't let anyone talk you out of it. And I think maybe that's what Patricia was talking about today when she said that all this dissonance, it's just a distraction. And did you ever wonder if the distraction is simply because whoever those are, right, the powers that be, whoever that is, just the collective egoic mind has decided that if you tapped into your true, if you were to channel your wild at the core, you would be unstoppable. No one would be able to control you. No one would be able to veto your heart's vital. So what do? They go, we can't have them hearing that still small voice. We can't have them hearing that inner whisper. So we got to throw a kabuki theater, right? We got to throw a dog and pony show. You know what? We could call one of the dog and pony shows, we could call it politics. That's a good one. I know what we could call another dog and pony show. We could call it organized Orthodox religion. That would be a good one. I know what we could do. We could call it, let me see. We could call it We go, everyday life. Oh, you got to get this bling, this bauble. You have to get all these other things, right? Here's everything you're going to need in order to be successful, in order to be fulfilled, in order to feel like this life means something. Let's have a dog and pony show of that. All the distractions, all the little shiny things. What was it? I think it was Tolkien that said that all that glitters is not gold, right? All these little shiny things that are going to distract us from listening to that inner wit, to that inner wisdom. And maybe that's the dog and pony show. And you see that going on in the world today. And so another thing that we were talking about today, my friend Jamie and I were kicking it around, and Patricia to a certain degree. But, you hear all this thing now. Everyone's saying, cut the cable. Well, what if we could cut out the bad, but cue up the good? What if in the evenings we decided we're not going to get into all this mashugana? We're not going to get into the gang fights and the street fights that is everyday news going on in this country. But what we're going to do is we're going to find something that allows us to focus on who we truly are at our core. We're going to do something that allows us to focus on our primal scream. We're going to do something that allows us to put our heart's highest priority top of the list. And what if we did that? What if we cut the cable and said, okay, let's cut the cable, but let's cue the good. Let's cut out the bad, but cue the good. Let's find a way of hanging together and working to make sure that our primal scream is front and center in our lives. How great would that be? Maybe that's something we could focus on here in terms of what all natural being is going to be in the thread. Maybe. You don't know. But what if we were to try that just a little bit? What if you say, I'm going to take a vacation. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a sabbatical from all the stuff running around in the world today. And I'm going to pay attention to the sense of hedonism, to the sense of narcissism. I'm going to pay attention and make sure that my heart's highest calling is at the top of the list. What could be so wrong? How could that be wrong? So that's what I'd like to focus on tonight. What it would take to put yourself first. What it would take to have some empathetic compassion for yourself. What it would take to guarantee your head and your hearts, to guarantee total health through hedonism, right? Take your shoes off, run barefoot through the grass. You get where I'm going. Now, we're not saying do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where you ignore the needs of everyone around you. We're not saying that. But what we are saying is you could take a chunk of your day and be a little hedonistic. You could take a chunk of your day and be a little narcissistic. You could take a chunk of your day and say, oh, okay, great. What if we did nothing but focus on what I view is as important in my life? What if we were to do that? What if we were to say, okay, right now, look at that. Right now, what if we said, nope. It's going to be my heart's highest priority. All right, let's jump into the thread before we open the phone lines. Good evening to Janile. Nice to see you. Thank you so very much. Good evening, Henry. Thank you for joining us, as always. Hello, Rita. Thank you for all the great posts of late. Shane says, cut the cables of society's pressures. Absolutely agree. Well, cut the cable. Isn't that interesting, Shane? Because we can talk about being a marionette, right? Strings, cables, all the same thing. I think that's what Patricia was talking about. Deborah Lee, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. I think it is a pretty decent idea. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. Patricia, oh my God, let's talk about how we can be positive to a negative thrown at us. Absolutely agreed. All right, let's go ahead and take our first call. Hold on one second. Let me just say hello, Jamie. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. Lee, hello to you. Thank you for joining us. Super appreciate it. Nice to see you hanging out here. All right, let's go ahead and take our first call. Good evening. Welcome to All Natural Being. Who's this?
Hey, Brian. I thought I'd give you a night off, and so I appreciate that last night.
Oh, that's okay. Anytime at all. You know what? That's the nice thing about it is the ability. And then I've got to watch your volume a little bit, Henry. You're coming in really hot for some reason. So let's try a little more again. But what are you up to? How goes? We're talking this evening about why would you ever let your head veto your heart's vital? That's kind of what we were thinking about this evening. So what are your thoughts on that? Why do we do that?
Why do we do it? Well, again, we're governed by ego, and ego is the controller. That's our choreographer. That's our the one that teaches us the dance steps that we're supposed to make in this society, and that's who gets us into trouble. That gets us into our depressions. That's what gets us into agreeing to being a marionette,
Sure.
to being a sock puppet. It's all dealing with our ego and not realizing the power that it really has over us, and how we've just allowed it to do that just because of our own lack of knowledge about its meanderings.
Well, and I think it's a very valid point to say that it's power that it has over us, because it's a subjugation of our own power, right? We put the puppet government in charge. When our ego outstays its welcome, when it outstays its shelf life of youth, we put it in charge. We surrender our wild at the core so that we can be controlled by the committee vote. Shane says exactly. Use those cables to climb yourself out of your personal ego. I like that, right? Shane, as you know from martial arts, all we're doing is talking about weaponizing your surroundings. So if there's going to be a cable that forces you to be played like a marionette, then use those same cables to go ahead and pull yourself out. I like that, Shane. That's that's actually very creative. So, Henry, we were also talking about today, where I was talking to Jamie a little bit, I was talking to Patricia a little bit, and born out of some of those conversations was the fact that hedonism is just getting a bad rap. And all the powers that be, whatever those powers that be are, they want to convince you that hedonism is somehow antithetical with the human heart, that you have to be altruistic, that you have to always be caring about other people. And we're not saying that we're not caring about other people, but if you can't be empathetic, if you can't show yourself some compassion first, if you can't be thrilled, truly thrilled, even hedonistic, even narcissistic with who you are in this particular moment in all of time, what good are you going to be to anyone else when it comes time to be altruistic? And again, I go back to the airplane. Put your mask on before you help everyone else. So what's wrong with a little hedonism?
No, there's nothing. To me, that we have to place ourselves first, but not in ego's definition of self. We need the self-awareness. Absolutely, we have to understand that we are being manipulated and being controlled. Absolutely, we have the drive to compete, which doesn't necessarily have to be negative. I mean, being competitive, you bring your all, you bring your best, you bring your bold. In order to compete, so I think being presented in a positive fashion like that, there's nothing wrong with it at all. And being hedonistic is simply it's just a variation on the same terms of what we've been talking about. Is getting our ego under control. I mean, it's when you combine our ego along, and it is the one that defines what hedonistic is where we get into trouble. It's when we get into ego's definition and pushing to be narcissistic. We just simply have to have compassion. Ego throws in the sympathy and the having empathy and all of these things so that we can feel so that we're not so bad because we are thinking about somebody else, and it's in our way being altruistic. But not until we get to compassion do we really understand what it's all about and the strength and the power that ego does have over us.
And going back to it again, the strength and the power that we surrender, we give it to them. Because I'm starting to understand when we've talked before in the past that we're not saying that we're here to eliminate the ego, but to illuminate its tactics. So I'm a huge fan of ego. There are times where you absolutely need to look both ways before you cross the street. Because if not, you look at all the people running around today. Now there's laws in cities all over the country that say you can't text and walk. Why? Because these people have totally abandoned any sense of where they are in the moment, and they're busy looking down, texting, walking, and walking right out into traffic. So there comes a time, right? A little bit of sprinkle of ego probably isn't bad, but not like some of the ego that you see running amok. I loved this past week listening to both President Trump and former President Obama give their speeches, and I think collectively they said I, me, or my 100 times a piece each.
Exactly.
It's not about what we're doing as a collective, who we are as a country. I did this. I did that. Me.
That's
my. My. You go, if you ever wanted a definition of egos out of control, right? Look at Corey Aegis Booker. I am Spanky, right? Or any of the other things that are going on and going, these are the people that we elect to run the rules for us. They're just skin bags of ego run amok, I would think. Your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely right. And I think that that's the issue that we deal with. We have been so well trained to allow ego to dictate to us how we are going to react. Not so much act, but how we're going to react to stuff. And that is really where the issue is, to where we simply, in order to grab hold of some sense of it, we tune out. Mm-hmm. We zone out. We stop paying attention to what's being said. We don't investigate a little further. We don't ask the why. We don't go down and follow who gets the money or who is the one that really is going to lose the most if something doesn't happen.
Right.
We don't ask those questions because we have ego that tells us it's okay. You can listen to Fox or listen to CNN and you'll get the truth.
Sure. Or you could just decide to listen to your heart's highest calling, put that on your top of your list. I can't tell you the number of my friends that just go, I haven't listened to a news show in months. And they seem to be getting along well in life. I have to tell you, from time to time, I'll turn on some news now during the day when I'm just looking for some fodder, just looking for some things that we may want to talk about. Patricia says there is nothing wrong with ego, but you have to understand these folks.
You really do.
Yeah. And then Rita, I'm sorry, that was Patricia. Rita says the politicians think people are stupid and cannot think for themselves. Or, you know what, even if let me say this, Rita, I suspect even if they don't think we're stupid, they're perfectly happy treating us like we're stupid. I think a slight little variation might be they know how brilliant we can be. They know that our potential is just this side of infinity. So that if they can keep convincing us that we're dolts, right? If they can keep convincing us that we're vapid, right? New York Times has written it, what do we say, the 9th grade reading level. If they can keep convincing us that we need a government or whatever, we need whatever organization to help us out, to help us be human, to help us make it through the day, then that's a part of the checkmate. But make no mistake, we're the one that tips our own queen. We're the one that corners ourselves into checkmate. So I would add that. And people let them. Rita, you're absolutely correct. I'm sorry, Henry, go ahead.
No, she's absolutely right. But you are too. We are the ones that are, we're the ones volunteering to play the game in the first place. I mean, that's it. We're buying into the game. And so long as we continue to buy into the game, we have nobody else to blame but ourselves for the outcome of what it does to us. If we are going to be treated as stupid, as ignorant, and we are going to buy into that, then it's our fault. I mean, we have the person in the mirror we have to answer to. And they're just simply doing it over and over and over again. You're worthless, you're worthless, you're worthless, you need me, you need me, you need me. You start to believe it, and especially after generation after generation. And that's where we really have to do it. You're right. Ego is a tool that is being used against us. We can actually use it for us.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's a balance, right? It's a natural blend because, we talk about all natural being and then you say, okay, well, the ego was a function of natural evolution, however you define evolution. The ego was a natural part of that. Absolutely. What's run amok is when ego becomes normal in your life. It far abandons being natural anymore, and it metastasizes into normal. Let me say hello quickly to Janice. Janice, thank you very much for joining us. And then, Janice, also, I remember seeing something about you in your neighborhood. There was a young girl that was in need of something. Could you go ahead and post a little something here in the thread to let us know what that's all about? Lee says, a lie told often enough and with enough fervor eventually becomes indistinguishable from the truth. Lee's absolutely correct. And that's what happens, right? When they go, they're going to beat it down. But here's the thing. And ultimately, you know who I blame, Henry? Well, I blame you. I blame Shane. Good. I blame me. I blame Lee and Janice and Rita and Candace and Jamie because we're the ones that the news organizations, they must get it from somewhere. They believe that we want to see Marine One take off. We want to see the heads of state of Europe in a 3-day meeting. I couldn't care less. Oh, well, they had escargot. Oh, really? Jamie, that's why I could get Jamie's friend we were talking about today, maybe calling in to tell us a little bit about French cuisine. But other than that, who cares? And then you look at the news. It would have to be, regardless of where you get your news, the first 20 minutes, the first 30 minutes. The politicians did this. Politicians did that. This is what's going on in Washington. This is what's going on in your state capital. So I think we kind of wink, wink, nod, nod, tell them, yeah, this is what we want to watch. This is what we want to hear. But for those of us that don't want to watch that don't want to hear that want to cut the cable, I think we're finally starting to make a stand, draw a line in the sand and go, we're not going to be hoodwinked anymore. We have a life to live, for God's sakes.
Exactly. That's exactly the position that we have to take. We have to be civilly disobedient. We just simply don't want to listen to this stuff anymore, and we're not going to buy into all of the mashugana that they're trying to throw at us.
Sure.
I mean, and I think there's nothing wrong with being disobedient. That's really what it is, because it's from that disobedience that the powers that be get the idea, wow, they're not as dumb as we thought.
Maybe so.
Now, of course, that ups their ante, and that they up their game to make sure that we still continue to conform. And that's why people like the Rush Limbaughs or those that really voice their own opinions. Sure. I don't always agree with him at all,
right.
But that's why they're ousted. You know, you talk about freedom of speech.
Sure.
Where is it? Where is the freedom of speech? I mean, between people being thrown off the air,
right,
or people being accused of false news,
right,
where's freedom of speech?
Let me say hello to Darren real quickly. Darren, thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. Lee says, I've actually heard some people say, I don't care if I post misinformation. I'll let other people, right? So he's talking about, he's just going to go ahead or he's heard other people say, if I'm going to post information, then let someone else sort it out. But in going back to what you're saying, thank you, Lee, very much. Janice, thank you. If there's some other way, Janice says, okay, thanks, B. That is so sweet of you, but I received it through a messenger through Greg Kinane. All right, well, if there's anything else we can do here in the thread, Janice, by all means, let us know. And to Lee's point, I've actually heard people say, I don't care to post misinformation. So here's where I've started to draw the line, so that we don't sound, Shane says, I live for disobedience. Well, just so we don't end up sounding like Maxine Waters, calling to be civilly disobedient. All these people that scream, oh, I want civil disobedience, then try to be disobedient to the voice in your head that causes you to act like a putz, right? Because everyone wants to fight the war outwardly. Everyone says, oh, I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's do it. But then they don't do the work to be disobedient to those voices that say, they're not pretty enough, they're not smart enough, they're not wealthy enough, they're not athletic enough, right? All those egoic things that build, all the varnish, all the philosophical shellac, all these different things. We'll grab what are we going to grab? We're going to grab a sword. We're going to grab a hammer, right? We're going to grab a shovel. We're tired of everyone else's BS, and we're going to grab a shovel and shovel it out, but we won't shovel our own. So I think for me, that disobedience starts a lot closer to home.
Yeah, and I think that's the civil disobedience that I'm talking about, is us. We have to deal with us.
Right.
We can get out there, and if you don't react to the fears, I mean, understand, everything that's out there is all fear motivated. If you listen to any piece of information out there, it's fear motivated. Why don't they don't want the new nominee for the Supreme Court? It's fear. That's what they preach. They don't want Trump in office because of fear. They don't want Obama in office because of fear. It's all fear motivated. This is the stuff we have to understand this. We have to look at this and say, no more. I'm not going to react to this stuff anymore. Right.
So freedom of speech. Freedom of speech, you can, people argue all the time about the First Amendment or freedom of speech, and I've said, well, implied in that, there's also a freedom of hearing. Let me say hello quickly to Chris. Chris, thank you for joining us. Joseph, thank you. Little bit of a riff for Joseph. I will never look at Joseph Haggerty's name again and not think heavy metal. So, Joseph, thank you very much for that. Chris and Janice, good evening again and welcome to All Natural Being. So I'm with you, Henry. I think that what I've learned of late is that all the things that I have to do to clean up my own act, right, I'm going to work on the freedom of hearing. I'm not worried if they cancel I don't think they should have canceled Alex Jones. I don't think they should have blocked this one or that one or Dennis Prager or this one. Let them all talk. That's the beauty of it. You're free to hear what you want to hear. And if you decide, nah, I don't want to hear that drool,
then you don't tune in.
Then you don't tune in. To me, that's what freedom of speech is. Half of it is freedom of hearing. Because in order for there to be speech, what is it? If a tree falls in the wood, does it make any noise? Well, one half of speech is hearing. And just because I don't want to hear the idiocy come out of someone's mouth doesn't mean that I want to squelch their ability to be an idiot.
Exactly.
Who am I? Who am I to decide that another person's opinion should be squelched?
Exactly. But when you develop a following of, a couple of million people,
sure,
that scares them. Now the fear is played back on them, and they have to react. They feel like they have to react because their agenda may just get overthrown. And that is part of the issue that we deal with. And that number is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Used to be they didn't even care about it, but now they're realizing that as the more people that start to listen to a particular diatribe of information,
sure,
that means it's against us, and we can't have that. So we have to corral them back in. I mean,
sure.
What is it? The movie, the name of it just it kind of eludes me now.
Well, let me say hello while you're thinking of the movie. Let me say hello to Mary. Mary, thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. And Janice says conservatives are the ones being blocked, not fair. And I think what would happen, Janice, if you look at, they've called Twitter, they've called Facebook, and everyone pretty much knows now that there's a very liberal bent to what's going on in social media. And I think it's like a pendulum. As Henry said, more and more people are starting to wake up, and they realize that it isn't fair. But I guess what I'm suggesting is that in addition to it not being fair that they block just one type of speech, then it's equally unfair to say, oh, well, that was great because he was a nut or she was a nut or this or that. And people say, oh, you know what, there has to be something against Alex Jones or there has to be something against Maxine Waters. Well, I don't think there has to be. The greatest way to highlight that someone's just bat crap crazy is to let them go on. That's what the Constitution, not just the Constitution, Henry, because there's people who listen to our show from all over the world, not just the Constitution here in the States, but I think it's just a great thing, the First Amendment, for all peoples to say you have a right. I saw the other day, Saudi Arabia, someone's going to jail because they made fun of the king. Well, I saw something, someone post something on social media and they were flogged. Because they were caned in a public square because of it, because this or that. Freedom of speech is a great idea wherever you are in the world. So we're not just talking about here in the United States. We're talking about people that do what they can to squelch speech around the world. Let me say hello to Patrick. Patrick, thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. So, Henry, let's talk about that a little bit. Why would anyone let their head veto their heart's vital, right? If you know this is your passion, and maybe it unfolds in a moment. Maybe you've known about it your whole life. But what would compel us? Why should we anymore let our head to decide what our heart's been trying to tell us all along is the way for us to go?
Well, it's very difficult because you can put the shoe on the other foot. I mean, the monarch that decides that they want total control. I mean, they're doing it by the heart. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to gain total power and complete control. And so they're letting their ego drive them. And that is what they're doing. Well, we're doing the same thing. And so to ask that question, we really have to look at this driving force of why we allow this to occur to ourselves. Why do we allow ourselves to be pushed around and bullied? Because we do. This is what our ego is directing us to do. And so we follow that. That's part of the problem when you deal with people like Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell, who I agree with a lot of their stuff, but I don't agree with it all. I believe there's a lot of stuff that they are totally wrong on because they haven't incorporated all of the nuances that really define who we are, and what has gone into, as John would say, the programming that makes us what we are, whether we are the A-type personality, or whether we are the wallflower, if we are the go at you and the big bully, or we are the one that is trying to be altruistic and be empathetic or be compassionate. It's all part of our upbringing, and it's all part of the programming that we've undergone. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. But to who we really are, the true all-natural being, it's not until we can strip away all that programming will we find out who that really is.
Well, and I think it goes back. Let me say quickly hello to Patrick Weaver. Patrick says, hey, man, got you pumping through my car right now, homie. Well, Patrick, as I say, I love being a virtual hitchhiker. Thank you so very much for that, and welcome this evening to All Natural Being. And what we're talking about is what happens where we let our head veto our heart's vital. And I think when you mentioned Carl Jung and you mentioned Joseph Campbell, who happened to be two, I can remember the very first book I read after my father's suicide was A Hero with 1,000 Faces. And I've studied for years the collective works of Campbell, who leads you to Jung and to Adler, right? And leads you to Freud and leads you to all the rest of it. But one of the things that I think is distilled down for me is that this hijacking that we talk about, what's happened is we just refuse to grow up. And, I had this, when I did the 24-hour show, I had this placard that I used as a gag. I said, customer satisfaction is our number one goal. Then I thought about it, and I got a couple laughs, and, we talked about it throughout the 24 hours. But then I started to realize that customer satisfaction, as far as all natural being and everything else goes, is like number 100. Right? Because I don't want us to be satisfied with believing that we should always hold on to our ego. I don't want us to be satisfied with training wheels. I don't want us to be satisfied with water wings and rubber duckies. I have to tell you, one of the things that enrages me more than anything, everyone talks about, oh, you ever get road rage? Yes, I do. Do you know what it is? The signs where you see them up and say, obey traffic signals or obey this speed limit. Not like, hey, we're going to get you if you speed, but obey. And when you see that obey, it just always rubs me the wrong way, because when you reach adulthood, when you get to that age where you realize that you were enlightenment, from the very get-go. And if you remove all the blinders, if you remove all the tunnel vision, if you remove all you take a squeegee, right? And you remove all the smog and all the shellac and the varnish, you're already enlightened. So these people running around going, oh, well, I have a course. I can make you enlightened. Idiot. Enlightenment, right? You know what I mean? Like say, oh, well, enlightenment, if you learn to, you rack your back, you torture your knees, you drink this, you say that. Then for me, you're already that enlightened. So what happens is we become encased in this because we refuse to grow up like a chrysalis. You mentioned monarch earlier. Got to tell you, the first thing I thought was a butterfly. You mentioned monarch earlier, and then you look at the chrysalis and you go, some people have just decided to throw off the cocoon and fly on their own. But for other people, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't know.
That's right.
And to your point, so they keep you scared. They keep you worried. They keep you, we need you to protect you. Well, let me ask you a question. And now I've been through them before. How many people actually think that who you voted for is going to protect you when Florence comes on shore here later this week? It's just not in the cards for us to be protected from everything. There's going to be a hurricane, and we're going to have to be careful. But I can tell you, especially from the hurricane, the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, when people said, oh, well, the government just let us down, or they didn't do this, or they didn't do that. How could they? So it's easy to jump on and go, well, I'm anti-government because they didn't help people after Hurricane Katrina. There was just too many. There was too much damage. There was nothing that any single entity could have done to try to help collectively all these different organizations. So I think that's where I am in this whole thing, where if you're going to be disobedient to the chrysalis, the cocoon that you continually wrap yourself in, and then say, no, today I think I am. As Joseph said, safety is the carrot. I absolutely agree, Joseph. Safety is the carrot. Candace says there's still life events that will always affect us. Just figure out how I deal with it. Absolutely agreed, Candace. We can't target, or we can't change the fact that we're targeted by fate, but we can most certainly decide what our counterpunch is going to be. I didn't know that 2 years ago yesterday I was going to be diagnosed with a brain tumor, right? I didn't know that I was going to be subject. Wayne and I were laughing earlier today, Henry, talking about, well, now you're the bionic man, right? Because I have an implant. Lee said to me, we should get together and make it the, what did he call it? The Cyborg Media Group, right? Because we have these artificial things that are added to us, right? But to your point, I think you're absolutely right that some of this disobedience that we need is to the safety blankets, the comfort zones, the safety zones. Think about that. Oh, we need safety zones on college campuses. That's not natural. They don't occur anywhere in nature. Where is a safety zone in nature? Pick one for me.
Well, and what's the purpose of the safety zone? To squelch fear. Well,
sure.
So why do we so surround ourselves with some? Why are we so afraid of fear? I mean,
Right.
it's crazy. I mean, it's like, living in an area that's below sea level, and a storm comes in and floods the place, and people drown. You didn't know to get out.
Well, Shane says here, and he says, and there's expectations that someone else is going to fix everything. And I think, Shane, and I think that's what Henry's saying. To be honest with you, yes, Janice, I did have a Mercury Monarch growing up. Thank you very much for reminding me. So apparently, Henry, when you said Monarch, second on my list to the butterfly was the fact that I used to drive one. Let me say hi to Mitzi. Oh, I know, it's great, isn't it? Patrick, who's good with Photoshop and can make a Borg meme for me? Oh, that's a great one. He talks about a Borg.
Cool.
I like that, Patrick. Thank you very much. Shane says, people need to stop living with the expectations of others. I would agree. John says,
right.
When you first wake up, it's a bit unnerving for a while about how much mashugana we've actually inundated with. I would absolutely agree with that. And Mary, here in the thread, Mary, thank you so much for giving us your thoughts, says, when we lived in Oklahoma, the churches did a much better job than FEMA. It wasn't government. And you know what? I will say to you that some of the groups that I worked with, Mary, some of the groups that I worked with in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, I slept in a Methodist church, a flooded out Methodist church, but there was a certain part of the church where we slept on the wooden pews. And that's where we would run out to take food and water to people. So I absolutely agree with that. And Mary says, resistance, Henry, is futile. Mitzi says, maybe because we're humans, we have figured out that safety zones equal comfort, just like homes.
We are the Borg. I love that.
We are the Borg. Isn't that something else? So for me, I ask people sometimes, we need safety zones. We need bubble wrap. We need to be protected from everything. And I don't think there's anything I could have done to be protected from a golf ball-sized brain tumor, right?
No.
Fate's going to do what it does.
It's what you do and how you react to the situation.
Yes.
And that's really all it's about, is what do you do once you know? And that's what you have to deal with. And that's what we all have to deal with.
Sure.
And if we're not prepared enough, then yes, resistance is futile.
Yep.
I mean, because we really should be simply assimilated into the Borg. And that's not where I really want to go. I mean, that's not where the answers are. To me, it's simply look to yourself, understand that you have the answers, and we are so hell-bent on making sure someone takes care of us. Someone is going to be responsible for us. So when we make the decision to be indecisive, we will be protected in spite of ourselves.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. Well, that's what happens with rodeo clowns.
And you don't get out of the way, you're going to get hit by the buffalo. So there's nothing you can,
That's why there's rodeo clowns, right?
That's it.
That's why there's rodeo clowns. Mitzi says, perhaps it's an evolutionary thing, which is a great train of thought. Let me do this real quick, if you would. If you want to give us a call, 833-462-3968, 833-GO-BE-U. Need a little bit of help with the numbers. The evolutionary thing, that's why I say all the time, Mitzi, that I look at Homo ingenius, right? We talk about all the different species that led up to now Homo sapiens, right? A blazingly wise man or wise women. But I'm looking at Homo ingenius, and that's the transition. Henry, I don't think you and I have ever talked about that. But one of the things that so excites me about transitional radio is that I believe there is a tipping point coming, and there's going to be human gettings, right? Lee says, Cyborg Media Group, we're mostly there. Yes, we are. I love it. I got the shunt to prove it. Look like a unicorn, right? Joseph says, no one knows your problems better than oneself, family, and neighbors. Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agree, Joseph. John says resistance is the spark that drives innovation. Absolutely agreed. So, but what I wanted to mention to that is that at this tipping point, there'll be human gettings that are busy looking for the baubles, the trinkets, the whatnot. But then Homo ingenious are the ones that learn to live compassionately with their own enlightenment. No carrot at the end of the stick. Homo ingenious is going to be that next round where they go, government, fear-mongering. All you do is open up your internet anymore. You open up your email, and it's insulting is what it boils down to. But all these different people that want to sell you stuff. Oh, I'm closing this tonight. Oh, it's going away tomorrow night. Oh, get in before the doors close. This whole fear of missing out. Well, internet marketers now have done a great job of you want to get it before the doors close forever.
Problem resolution solution.
You're the what is it called? The things that take people up. You're the elevator operator. The doors are only closing because you're closing them, needle nits. So this whole fear of missing out, you know what I mean? It just drives me nuts. You better order before midnight tonight, or, this is your last chance to get in. The numbers are overwhelming. Don't miss out. I think I will miss out.
It's played out to the ego.
Yeah, it's played out to the ego, that fear of missing out. So I think, to Mitzi's point, that Homo ingenious is going to be what's left after the tipping point, where you have the human gettings, everyone looking at the carrot on the end of the stick. Everyone wants their bubble wrap, their safety nets, their protection plans. And then there's going to be the rest of us that say, oh, Homo ingenious? No, we learned how to take our enlightenment and run with it. We learned how to take the gift that is 1 to the 10 times 2,700,000 zeros. And we've learned to run with it. Lee says, hey, FOMO butters my bread sometimes. I ain't even ashamed. Lee, as soon as I said that, I thought about that. I go, hopefully Lee took a coffee break. And Lee's probably saying, just so you know, the views expressed by Brian are not necessarily the views of everyone else in the thread. Thank you, Lee. I thought about you as soon as I said that. Okay, but look, Lee would also know that when you do it honorably, that there's a part of it going, look, this is going to be good for you. You may want to take advantage. Patrick says, forgetting my cell phone at home the other day was honestly liberating. Well, excellent. I love that. I will tell you, today I was out driving around, and the battery went dead. And my first inclination, Henry, was to go, holy cow, I'm going to be 20 minutes away before I can plug in my phone, right? So your first inclination goes, how will I ever survive? You mean like the first 21 years of my life? Maybe the first 25 years of my life? The first half of my life, I didn't have a cell phone. Apparently, I got a cell phone the second half of my life, which is how I got a brain tumor, right? So we know I had a cell phone at some point because I held it here, and that's where I got the tumor, right? He's absolutely right. Lee says it's all good. No, I'm not even going to. No, you are not. Lee says it's all good. I'm a scumbag marketer, and I'm okay with that. I would be okay with it too, Lee. I would be okay with it too. John says FOMO is a powerful tactic, as powerful as the over-sexualized sales ads. Well, there you go, John. You probably blew it up, BB. Well, thank you very much. That's it. Yeah, Lee's good, right? So I'll look over and I go, who did I lose as a friend over on Facebook later? Nah, I'm just kidding. Lee knows. All right. So, Henrys, we're getting ready to wrap it up. Let me say 833-462-3968, 833-GO-BU. How are we doing in the big transition, no pun intended, the big move over to transitional radio? Where are we? How's it coming along? What's going on? When do you think you're going to pull the trigger?
I think I have a bad connection. No, I got you.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
So is
Lee.
Lee.
It's actually coming up quick.
Lee's like, Brian, who?
As soon as I return home, which is toward the end of the month, we will get back to Ecuador. I need to check. Obviously, I got to check internet strengths and make sure that we actually can actually technically pull this off.
Sure.
And so as soon as that's proven, then I'm sure I can't imagine by the 1st of next month we should have this pretty much under wraps and should be going full bore, and then it's just filling for content at that point. So. Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's a great move, and it's fun because I mean it's Wayne and I were talking a little bit earlier about it, and yes, my idea of what transitional radio is going to be is totally different now from what it is going to become, based on just this whole morphosis of different ideas and different discussions between all of us.
Sure.
And I think it's fabulous. So what my conception of what transitional radio was going to be is totally different now. And so I do see it as a radio station, as an avenue for people to be able to present their views, their opinions, their things that they want to really say. And I think that's really what has to happen. Well, we're not going to be a pushover for the way the net media runs now. That's not what it's all about. So yes, I'm hoping that by the first of the month we should have all of the answers, or at least by the 3/4 through this month we'll know whether or not we can actually do this from there.
Well, we're looking forward to it.
We're
looking forward to it. I'll tell you just the whole concept, and then let me say hello to Bruce. Thank you for joining us, Bruce, here at All Natural Being. And also Darren says, my internet was down for a week. Did I miss it? Not really, except for this show. Darren, thank you very much. And I think that's what Henry's talking about, is that we hope when the All Natural Being moves over to transitional radio, that we can do that same kind of thing, where we say, okay, we hope that instead of all the infighting, instead of all the news, instead of, as Patricia said today, all the talking heads screaming at each other back and forth and this and that dissonance that she said is disquieting. It's distracting. It's deafening, I think is the word she used. We're going to be a place where you can come, where you want out of the storm of dissonance, right? Where you want out of the mashugana, and that has always been the goal of All Natural Being, and I'm hearing you say now that will be the continued goal of transitional radio.
Right, exactly. Let's filter out the static.
I like it. I call it static quo.
Static quo. I like that.
Thank you very much.
You're so good with those things. You are so good.
I don't know. It's the shunt talking. Hey, I realized the other day, it's just the it's so mercurial when the spinal fluid comes and goes with me. I've given up trying to figure out. They go, how did you think of that? Yeah, I don't know. I have no clue, right? The spinal fluid just seems to leak whenever it wants. I can hang upside down. I can lie flat. I can go for a run. I can not go for a run. This spinal fluid literally has a mind of its own. There you are, John. That was a pun that was intended. But yeah, the spinal fluid has a mind of its own, so who knows where it all comes from. But as you know, I've said many times, it's not for me. Wherever I channel it from, it's not for me.
Well, I've heard of people reading tea leaves and all that, but I've never heard of anybody reading cerebral spinal fluid. I think that's just fabulous.
Well, they should stick around. I can have some drip right out of me, and they can read it on the floor. I was going to say, I like tea. All right, Henry, we're going to let you go. Thank you so very much for hanging out with us for the hour.
Everybody.
And we super appreciate it. Oh, will you post in the thread how people can stay in contact with you over on SoundCloud until such time as your transitional radio page is up and ready to go? Would you mind throwing in the thread for me? Because I can't type and talk at the same time. Walk and chew gum. Could you throw that in the thread? I would appreciate it.
You got it.
Sounds good.
Great
all right,
to
Henry.
talk to you guys.
Thanks so much. Take care now. All right. Thank you all again. Let's try to get in one more call if you want. 833-462-3968. 833-GO-BU. Ooh. You think it's ooh. Let's see, you think it's ooh. Yeah, you should see it when I have to deal with it, right? It's just like, are you kidding me? Like, I'll tell you this quick little thing. 833-462-3968. So 2 years ago this week at the hospital, they cut the tumor out of me. I'm ready to go. I'm a little ticked off that they needed to put a tennis ball size hole in the back of my head to get a golf ball size tumor out of me. But what are you going to do? They're the brain surgeons. I'm just the guy, right? Fluids on the floor. Oh, you've heard this story. She's absolutely right. So what happens is I get through and I pass all the tests. Everything's looking great. They want me to walk with straps. They want me to walk up the stairs, lift my leg. They want me to do a jumping snap kick. They want me to do all these other things, right? So what happens is I'm getting ready to go. It's been 7 days. I'm getting dressed. I got my jeans on. I got this. I got all my stuff packed in the bag. And the nurse comes in and says, boy, you're really ready to go, aren't you? And I said, I am out of here. Good evening to Sue. Sue, thank you so much for hanging out, watching us, hanging with us here on All Natural Being. So I said to the nurse, yeah, I am ready to go. And I turn around and I grab my bag and I go like this, right? I go to wipe my nose. And she goes, what's that? And I go, what's what? She goes, your nose. Is your nose running? And she asks, is your nose running? And then it drips from my nose right down on the floor, right in front of us. There's no way for me to move my foot and cover it up. And I go, well, yeah, I'm in a hospital. Who knows what kind of flu you all gave me? You've left me in here for 7 days. Who knows what kind of yuck? Where are my plastic gloves, Lee? Who knows what kind of yuck you all gave me while I was here? And she goes, you think it's the flu, do you? And I go, well, yeah, right? What else could it be? And she goes, would you mind if I swab that? So she puts on these little blue gloves just like this. And I go, no, swab away. What do I care? Click on podcast and enjoy. Oh, yes, please. henrygnoel.com puts the post right here in the thread. Click on the podcast and enjoy. Or click on the podcast right on the site. There you go. So it puts on the plastic gloves and she says, oh, would you mind if I swab that? And I go, look, valet's bringing the car around. You can swab anything you want. I'm out of here. And she goes, well, before you head to the elevator, could you give me a couple of minutes? And I said, yeah, sure. Right? I'm out of Club Med. Right? I'm out of here. Sure. I'll give you 10 more minutes. And 10 minutes later, she comes back in with the doctor, and they go, by the way, we did a little test on your flu, and that's spinal fluid, which started another 20-some-odd days in the hospital, spinal tap, this and that, trying to figure out. So that's what made me think when Henry says, oh, you can read the tea leaves. That's how they got me. That's how they made me stick at Club Med for another 20-some days with the spinal tap and everything else, figuring out, well, let me just ask you this. You put a titanium plate in. I always thought titanium was pretty tough, but titanium plate couldn't find a way of stopping the leak of the spinal fluid. So in any event, all right, I've kicked that. For a while. Oh, I did say hello to Sue. Sue, thank you very much for joining us. So that's my story about reading tea leaves as spinal fluid on the floor. So you just leak spinal fluid. Yes, I just leak spinal fluid. Well, now they put a shunt in, Mitzi, so that allegedly, it's supposed to move it from my brain down into my peritoneum. But who knows if that works anymore, the way it swells from time to time. But in any event, I don't want to go into it. I just thought I would mention that in terms of reading the spinal fluid drops on the floor. Maybe there is a way to read that. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you all so very much again for joining us here at All Natural Being. We're fired up to ask you this question. Before we say go be you and get ready to welcome you back tomorrow night, ask you this question. Why would we ever let our head veto our heart's vital? To fit in? For the love and respect of those around us? If the love and respect of those around us is predicated on putting their heart's highest priority top of your list and not your heart's highest priority top of your list, I don't know. Might be time to check your inner circle. Seems to work for you. Thank you. Thank you very much, my friend. Well, the definition, or it's all in the definition of work, right? So I'm doing my best, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. So till tomorrow, remember to ask yourself a question. If you have people around you that is going to allow, is going to suggest, it's going to enable you to have a head that would veto your heart's vital, why are they still in the inner circle? And if your own still small voice has been shellacked into oblivion, it may be dormant, but it isn't dead. At any time you decide to put your heart's highest priority top of your list, at any time you decide to say, my heart's vital will never be vetoed by my head again, that's the day you hit enlightenment. That's the day you go, this is a pretty great gig here in the garden of the mortals. All right, in our closing 57 seconds, Henry says, start trusting yourself. I would absolutely agree. Jamie, thank you. I appreciate your time today and here in the thread as well. Oh, the guitar. Hold on, electric guitar. Let me get that up. If Joseph is still here, I got to get a ukulele because you know what's going to happen one of these times? I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to drop this 35-pound sledgehammer right on my foot, and then people are going to go, we don't know what happened to Brian. He was talking, and all of a sudden, he just dropped off screen. No one will know, right? And then they'll go, hey, has anyone seen Brian? And I'll be here on the floor with a broken foot. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you so very much. Don't forget, we're back every morning at 7 a.m. for Bring Your Own Bold right here on the Unleash Your Legendary page. And if you get a chance also we're starting now over on Instagram TV. If you get a chance to stop on by or know someone that may be empowered to have that little bit of early morning meme, if you will, send them on over that way. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. And until tomorrow, go be you. Go be your differently.
IPMNation.com.